Now to Turkey, where President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says this month's local elections will be his last as president, suggesting that he won't stand for another term. His comments came during a visit by his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelenskyy. President Erdogan also said he was ready to host a peace summit between Ukraine and Russia and that Turkey would contribute to the reconstruction of Ukraine when the war ends. Recep Tayyip Erdogan has led his country for more than 20 years, winning more than a dozen elections since 2002. He won his current 5-year term in hotly contested elections last May. Let's get more from our correspondent Dorian Jones in Istanbul. Welcome, Dorian. Help us untangle what the president's reported to have said, because elections at the end of this month are local rather than presidential.
Well, indeed, and why he has made these statements has provoked quite a lot of discussion, and certainly he has rekindled questions about his health throughout his presidency. He has been dogged by rumours of ill health, but it could also simply be an election ploy, because at the end of the month we have very hotly contested local elections, none more so than here in Istanbul, where Erdogan is desperate to oust the incumbent Ekrem İmamoğlu, and that contest is too close to call. So it could be an attempt by Erdogan to consolidate his base ahead of these critical elections. He used similar statements in last year's presidential election, pressing heavily on the fact that this is his last campaign, and it was seen as an attempt to consolidate his base, and it did work then. But it has to be also said, his words were very careful. He said the reason why this is his last is nothing to do with any questions of health. It's purely because of the Constitution, and it's widely expected that next year he is expected to try and introduce a new Constitution, and it's widely rumoured that the end of term limits could be one of those changes, which would open the door for him standing again.
All right, OK. Away from that, the president has just held a press conference regarding his meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. What did they say?
Well, there was a lot to be discussed in this meeting. One of the key things in the agenda was Zelenskyy calling for more arms. Is expected when he arrived here. Before he met with Erdogan, he visited a shipyard where there's been built a warship for the Ukrainian Navy. It's also rumoured that among the discussions is pressing Erdogan for delivering of large amounts of munitions. Ukraine is in desperate need of artillery shells, and Turkey possibly could be providing those. But along with that, there was also discussions about possibly renewing or trying to revive the grain export deal, which allowed Ukraine to export large amounts of grain to the world markets, which did help to drive down food prices. That ended when Russia walked away from the deal, and there have been discussions about how to continue to export grain. Currently, there are these what called humanitarian safe corridors. The two leaders are expected to have talked about further extending those and increasing grain exports, and also the question of peace talks. Erdogan is very keen to position himself as a guy that can facilitate or possibly to bring an end to this conflict, although there does appear to be a difference between the two leaders. Zelenskyy didn't show much interest in any idea of having a sit-down meeting with his Russian counterparts, which Erdogan is pressing for. Instead, he's calling for Erdogan to attend this peace conference, which is excluding Russia, and Erdogan is not very enthusiastic about that. So there was some difference between the two leaders, but this meeting certainly underscored how Erdogan likes to see himself as a key player in this conflict.
Thank you for that, Dorian. DW Correspondent Dorian Jones in Istanbul.